Stavros Yiannouka, right?
That's right.
It would be great. First of all, great to have you here in Delhi at a conference regarding education in India.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's you're CEO of WISE, a very well-known conference coming out of Doha in Qatar. It would be great if you could give us a short introduction, who you are, what you are doing, what is your background.
Sure. First of all, a little bit about WISE. So the World Innovation Summit for Education was inspired by the work of Her Highness Sheikha Moza bin Nasser, First Lady of Qatar, and her commitment to education. WISE is a multi-sectoral platform that is dedicated to advancing three global imperatives on education. Access to quality education for all, learning for life, and education anytime, anywhere. These are imperatives that I think are global in scale and scope, and hence are an appropriate topic or appropriate themes for a multi-sectoral and international platform such as WISE to engage with.
So you are not originally from Qatar?
Personally, no.
Personally,
I'm originally from Cyprus, but I've had a fairly international background. I was born in the United Kingdom, grew up in Cyprus, educated and spent my early adult life in the United Kingdom, then spent 12 years in Singapore. My wife is Singaporean, but with Indian roots.
yeah.
And for the last 5-6 months, I've been in Doha, Qatar.
So you
to
just
take
started?
I've just started, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So why do you think is exactly this huge international education conference coming out of the Emirates, coming out of Qatar?
Out of Qatar, not the Emirates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the area.
Well, again, I think, you know, I think I think it reflects, to a large extent, Her Highness's passions and interest in education and in seeing seeing education as a way, and I hope I'm not misquoting here, for people to take control of their own destiny. And it's an imperative in the Gulf. It's an imperative in the broader Middle East, North Africa region. It's an imperative, as we're hearing here in India. And it's an imperative even now in our parts of the world, in Europe and in North America, where we see that, you know, potentially our education systems are, to a certain extent, failing to prepare young people for work, failing to allow people who are out of work to acquire new skills, to give them an opportunity to participate fully in the economy, in society. Mm. And so again, I think it's a recognition. You know, on the one hand, it reflects the beliefs and the work and the vision of a very inspiring individual. On the other hand, it is a global issue, and you know, from my point of view, I'm not really interested where it originates. I'm glad that someone, some way, wants to do something about it, and I feel very privileged to be a part of it.
It seems, I mean, I've never attended one of these conferences, but to me it always seems to be very hands-on, practical examples besides theory, but very, very practical. It become very, many projects were there at WISE. So what do you see has been changing within the last years in this educational world? What are the key drivers there for change?
Well, again, I think, and this to a certain extent reflects the three imperatives that I spoke about, and that WISE is orienting itself towards addressing. And so for me, what's changed, I think, is, there's a focus. And I don't know if this is a global change, but certainly it's a change within WISE, that we're now keen to focus on these three imperatives. So access to quality education, which is a Millennium Development Goal, amongst other things. Focus on learning for life, which for us means at least three things. It means learning to be able to make a living, to be able to contribute to your society, to your community, to your family. It means learning literally throughout one's life, which again ties in with being able to upgrade your skills and therefore being able to continue contributing to society. But also, and to reflect one of the things we heard this morning from Dr. Singh, learning how to live with each other. Because again, if you buy into the notion that the world is becoming more and more interdependent and connected, then it's only through education, or through at least a common set of values and beliefs that can be imparted through education, that we will learn to coexist and collaborate in order to address our common challenges.
You just published a few days ago this new book, Learning for Living.
Yes.
What are the key examples for you in there?
Well, the book is constructed around, I would say, three pillars, or three parts of a continuum. Not really pillars, three parts of a continuum. The first part is what we talked about, which is, education needs to provide people with skills, marketable skills that will allow them to enter and be productive members of their society, their community. The next part, though, is that an education system, though, should also be able to make people adapt and be adaptable to changes in the environment. Because, it's easy to say, well, today you need these skills. But we know that with the changes that are taking place, skills that you acquire one day may well become redundant the next day. So arguably the most important skill is the skill to be able to adapt and to continue learning throughout your life. And then the third part of that continuum is actually to be able to not just to learn to adapt or to acquire skills, but to be able to create opportunities, to become, if you will, entrepreneurs, agents of change, so that not only are you adapting to someone else's reality, but actually you have the skills to create your own reality, one that works for you and one that works for your society. So that's, at a conceptual level, that's what the book talks about. And it picks examples from all over the world, whether it's from Finland and its outstanding vocational training institutes that really embed, not just vocational training, but entrepreneurship into it, to examples, again, from Burkina Faso, where, very much a parallel system has been developed to capitalize on the natural entrepreneurial spirit and innovativeness of people and turn it into an education. And there are plenty of other examples in the book, but these are the two that sort of stand out for me, because they come from very, very different parts of the world, but yet within them there is embedded this idea of skills, adaptability, and creativity.
For us right now, being here in Delhi and India, education is a huge topic.
Yes.
From whatever angle, it's a huge market as well. How would you define the major challenges for India? To get the country really going and, keeping the path?
Well, I think we heard it. We heard it today, very, very eloquently articulated by a number of speakers, including Dr. Sashi Tharoor. And I think, this focus on educating girls and educating women is the right one. I'm not an expert on India, but listening to the data and to the fact base that was presented to us today, it's a very, very compelling, proposition that if you can get, literacy rates for women up, if you can get enrollment of women in schools up, if you can get bring the dropout rates down, then it will have a transformative effect. I think what perhaps we didn't hear enough, in my view, and again, this is another plug for our book, is about the amazing work that Indian, non-governmental organizations and foundations are actually doing to advance the education agenda, not just in terms of education for women, but along the other dimensions that we talked about, the skills-based learning and education, providing access in very innovative ways to those who don't have it. And the book addresses it partly, but also the broader WISE community contains many such social entrepreneurs. And tomorrow we'll be hearing from one of them, Dr. Madhav Chavan, the CEO of Pratham, which is one of India's largest education NGOs, very successful, very much grassroots, self-sustaining and scalable model that Dr. Chavan has developed, and it's for that reason that he is our WISE Prize laureate. The WISE Prize, just for those who may not be aware, is our attempt as an organization to create a Nobel Prize equivalent for education.
So if you would have to name a few outstanding examples in the field of education, what would they be and why?
Well, I think, again, at the risk of,
It's risky, I know,
but at the risk of repeating myself, I would sort of, I would say, I would pick the Finnish model of vocational education as one point of reference.
Why?
Because they have succeeded in making vocational education as prestigious as academic education. And I think that has to be part of the answer. And it has to be part of the answer not just in the developed world, but even in the developing world. I mean, I was reading the other day in the New York Times, for example, that China now is producing fewer and fewer engineers and vocationally trained and skilled workers because it's considered lower quality, lower class, lower status, and therefore a lot of young Chinese, middle-class Chinese, are opting for academic studies that are essentially resulting in them being, if not unemployed, then certainly underemployed, and therefore going great and well-paid jobs in factories because they're considered lower status. So, and China is in a sense, I mean, it's come a long way very, very fast, but it's interesting how, within the same generation, you're seeing China experiencing almost, European type challenges and North American type challenges of, too many business graduates, maybe too many, and again, not to knock business I'm a business graduate myself, but not to knock, the humanities and liberal education, liberal arts education, but, too many opting for that because it's seen as conferring a certain status without appropriate reference to, well, can I get a job? Can I, will this allow me to be a productive and engaged
So you're talking about diversity. That's,
Well, yeah, diversity in the education, but I think why Finland stands out is because they've succeeded at least to make vocational education cool. I mean, to use a
Yeah.
to use that term, it's cool. It's of equivalent status. Yeah.
What else is cool there?
Well,
Or worth mentioning to be cool, knowing that we
Sure.
can't name everything.
Well, again, I mean, just to not to sort of harp too much on Finland, but again, the status of teachers, very important. They're able to, and again, Singapore does this as well too. So it's not, it's not limited to Finland. Singapore does this very well too. They recruit some very, very good people to be teachers, and it's considered a noble profession, and a profession that carries a certain amount of social status with it. And it's not just in the pay. I mean, I think teachers in Singapore and in Finland tend to be paid better than average. But I mean, you don't go into education in Finland and in Singapore to make money. So it's, you're not that well paid, but it carries with it status. And so that's another element I would highlight, how a teacher's perceived within society, I think, is very, very important. And do you, as in some Western societies, do you sort of relegate them to, to the ranks of those who can't do, and I hate this expression, those who can't do teach. That's a horrible, in my view, expression, but it's reflective of, the perverse thinking that exists in some, some societies, that, teachers really are not very important, and they're only there because they can't do anything else. I mean, it's absolute nonsense.
But why do you think, is it like this? I mean, the kids are our future, and we simply never got it somehow wrong to take, to give them the opportunity really to uplift to their full potential.
Yeah.
Even knowing, they are going to be on this planet when we are dying. So why do you think is this? I've been asking this question.
Well, I'm afraid I don't have an answer either. I mean, I consider it, and again, I think it is, it is a social construct. And, as I said, there are societies out there, there is, Finland, there is Singapore, there is China to a certain extent, where the teacher is respected, is a respected member of the community and of society. And I think in parts of the West we have lost that. I think it used to be the case, but I think we need to rediscover it. And we need to take better care of our teachers. Demand from them high standards and high performance, but also treat them with the appropriate respect that they deserve.
Yeah. What are the challenges and what are good solutions you've been seeing at WISE, or especially for rural areas?
Yeah.
I mean, we see many good examples in the big cities
Yeah.
or in well-developed countries. Rural areas.
Rural areas, I mean, this may not be a perfect analogy, but one of our WISE award winners, again, each year we at WISE give out 6 smaller awards to innovative enterprises, education enterprises, that have found creative ways to solve key problems, whether it's access or, skills-based training, whatever the challenge, these people have come up with a creative solution. One of my favorite examples are the floating schools in Bangladesh. These are solar-powered boats where essentially the school comes to the child, or the adult actually, because they serve a dual purpose. They teach children, but they also teach adults basic skills, and so there's something around this theme of bringing the school to the child that I think is a particular solution that can serve rural communities where it may not be, for whatever reason, for funding purposes or because you lack economies of scale, it's not practical or feasible to create state-of-the-art schools, within each village and within each, each community, or it's not practical to get the children to travel, a certain amount of distance to get to a school that's large enough to be able to provide them with quality. So we've got to find a way of bringing the school to the child. And so this issue of whether it's a boat, that moves around, or some technology that allows, children to access quality education and to be able to interact with a professionally trained teacher, I think that's the kind of example that certainly we would be looking for at WISE.
You've mentioned a couple of times this entrepreneurial thinking.
Yes.
You think is a very important requirement. Yeah. At what age do you think they should start?
Well, again, the examples that we have in, whether it's in the book Learning a Living, or whether it's, through our awards, is that it's never, kids are never too young. But by the same token, and you're never too old either. I think, we, at the launch of the official launch of the book took place in London 2 days ago. And there was a lot of talk in London about lost generations. And my view is that we should ban that phrase completely. No generation is ever lost. No one is ever too old to learn.
So what are the next steps? WISE conference is coming up always in November?
In October this year, 29th to the 31st of October.
What road are you going down for this year's conference?
Well, we're still in the process of designing it, but we're tending towards the theme of education anytime, anywhere, which I think embraces a lot of the issues that we talked about. It's on the one hand it's about access, on the other hand it's about lifelong learning. There's an element in there as well, which I think, at the risk of sounding maybe somewhat radical, of really taking education out of the education system, and reimagining education, without necessarily being bound by time, K to 12, or place, the school building or the university. So we're thinking along those lines, but again, don't, if that's not the theme for the education, don't hold me, for the conference, don't hold me responsible. It's,
many people say these new kind of thinking about learning, about teaching, is a worldwide movement. Would you go along with this?
Yes, I mean, from what I've seen, again, having attended WISE as a participant in 2011, as a sort of incoming CEO in 2012, and now thinking about the design of the next summit, but also you're participating in One Globe in Delhi and in certain other events. I can confirm that there is a global movement for education. Some of it is trying to reinvent, other parts of it are technology driven, others are trying to, preserve and enhance, but yes, it's global. I mean, that's one of the beauties, I think, of and one of the great strengths of WISE is that we've been able to tap into this global movement. And so if you come to WISE, and I hope you will, you will see that we have representatives there from over 100 countries typically.
So you've just been taken over half a year ago. Are there any changes to be expected or any new focuses
For WISE,
for WISE?
and again, working collaboratively with my stakeholders, with my team, of course, there's a couple of things that we want to do that are perhaps different. Or I don't want to say they're different, actually. I think they represent a natural progression. WISE is now in its 5th year, and I think we're all in agreement that we now need to move beyond the summit, beyond the event. The event, of course, and the summit will continue to be a very important feature of WISE. But WISE can and ought to be much more. It ought to really be a movement. It ought to be an active network and a proactive facilitator of solutions and innovations in education. So I look at WISE a little bit like an old-style intermediary, if you will. We know the practitioners, we know the entrepreneurs, we know the governments, we know the potential funders. Can we act as the platform, or even more than just the platform? Platforms can be quite passive and static.
As a hub.
But an intermediary or a broker, where we bring people together and we put them in a room and we sit them around a table and we say, look, let's work together. Let's forge partnerships that drive towards certain solutions. And that's a year long act. That's not 3 days. That's not 3 days in October or November. That's 365 days a year, 66 if it's a leap year.
Okay. So all the best for this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.